a shelter, keeps our hearts warm. Through every silence, every sharp fight, there's a light, oh, a light calling us right.
Welcome to SOAR, Leadership for Kingdom Women, the podcast where faith meets leadership. Here we equip, inspire, and empower women to strengthen, overcome, align, and rise in their God-given calling, whether in business, in church, or in life. This is your time to rise higher. Let's soar together. Here's your host, Dr. Sharon Arrindell.
Hello again, everyone, and we're back. I have the pleasure of being here with another one of my co-authors from our upcoming book that's set to launch actually very, very soon. Her name is Beth Close, but I just want to introduce myself first. I'm Dr. Sharon Arrindell. I am your host, transformational speaker, faith-based leadership coach, and the woman behind programs that help Kingdom women to soar. What is SOAR? Strengthen, overcome, align, and rise in business, in church, and in life. And so, as I said earlier, our guest today is the incredible Beth Close. She is the author of Chapter 16 in our anthology From Cocoon to SOAR. And her chapter is titled Trailblazers Unite, Amplifying Sisterhood. Beth is a powerful voice for healing, wholeness, and the beauty that rises from broken places. Through her work with Whole Being Broken, and Grace Built Her, she has helped countless women find strength, identity, and connection after deep seasons of loss and reinvention. You're going to feel the weight of her wisdom, just like I did when I read her chapter, the weight of her wisdom and the warmth of her heart in this conversation. So let's dive in and welcome my sister and my co-author, Beth Close. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Sharon, and thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here as part of SOAR Leadership, the Kingdom for Women. I just wanted to say thank you for following your calling and for creating such a beautiful space where women really do get the opportunity to rise and to heal and lead with courage and grace. What you're doing is so powerful, and I am so grateful to join this conversation of sisterhood and faith and beauty that comes from walking this journey together. And it's been an honor to get to write this chapter in this book. And I'm so excited to see what God's going to do with this.
Yes, we're calling it a movement, right? We're not calling it a book anymore. It's a movement. For those of you listening, I can't even explain it. I've read all the chapters, so I get to know what this book is really all about. And so I'm grateful to you, Beth, and all the other 16 co-authors that jumped in to write with me. So we're just going to jump in with my questions. You're a pro at this, so all I want is for you to be yourself. There's no fluff. There's no, we're just keeping it real.
I'm too transparent to be that fluffy stuff anyway. It's like my husband always says, don't ever put me on a stand because I'll tell everything. Yeah. I say it the way I feel it.
Yeah, just raw like that. And
Exactly.
I do the same. And so my first part of the question is the heart behind sisterhood. Your chapter, Trailblazers Unite, Amplifying Sisterhood, it beautifully captures the power of woman lifting one another through love and through purpose. What inspired this message, and how have sisterhood and community played a role in your own healing journey?
That's a great question. And even in the books that my personal books that I've authored, it's truly the inspiration that came behind this for me is just realizing how often women are taught that leadership it doesn't mean do it alone. And I feel that is a lie that we've been taught, and pushing harder, or climbing faster, or proving ourselves. But through my own falling and rising, I've learned that true leadership is never a solo climb. It's really been for me linking arms and breaking silences and walking in a path together. And sisterhood became a sacred space where my grief finally found the language, where shame and loss isn't gripped. It's where competition turned more collaboration for me. It was really seeing other women's brave in comparisons, and like seeing who they are. And it reminded me that our cracks weren't proof of weakness. They're where God's light gets to beam and shine through. And that's the heartbeat for this chapter, that we rise stronger and higher together when we are in that movement of rising together.
Mm. And, for those listening to us, and you're probably still in that crawling place, and I'm hoping you're in the cocoon place, because when you get to the cocoon, you can't turn back and crawl. You shouldn't,
That's right.
That's where your wings get made and you get to rise. And sometimes the making process is difficult. And so we fly without being ready. But this book is supposed to embrace all of that and help you to understand your own flight. So from broken to bright, you often say that brokenness is not the end of the story. It's where the light begins to shine through. So can you share a moment from your life when God met you in your brokenness and began to restore your identity and your vision?
Yeah, so there's many different seasons of where I carry deep grief. And I find that when you're angry towards someone that I trust or I trusted, and that they hurt me deeply, so I remember rehearsing some words in my head that, I don't forgive you. And for a long time, I felt like that was the end of the story. Like, I didn't want to forgive them. I wanted it to be that place. But what I realized is that raw, honest conversation with God is where he forgave me when I didn't deserve grace, but I needed to forgive. And in a small circle of women who I trusted, I finally spoke those words out loud and realized that no one needs to try to fix anyone, but just simply sit with each other. And a woman across reached out and touched my hand and said, I've been there too. And in that moment, it didn't change me, but what I realized is I'm not alone. In human flesh, God gave me someone that had walked this journey and had been hurt and betrayed by someone that she trusted so much. And it gave me this moment to realize that unforgiveness isn't going to be the answer. I need to forgive in spite of it. And realizing that if I would forgive a stranger on the street for doing something harmful to me, then I need to find the grace to forgive someone that was very close to me. And that's when I started to let that light shine and break through, not in a perfect way, but more in a resolution way, in an honest way, in a community where I found that grace that God showed me that I was then able to start showing, and not because someone deserved it or not because I thought it should look a certain way, but just by truly letting it come through. And God showed me that healing often starts in those little cracks. So I've always said we can all be whole being broken.
Wow. Wholeness is my mantra. Everything that I do speaks to that. And because I feel like you can't really do anything broken. And we all have so much to do.
Yes.
We all have an assignment, right? And when we're broken, it kind of shifts the atmosphere and makes it not so easy to fulfill the assignment that God has given to us as kingdom women. And so I'm glad that you shared that for some woman out there who might be going through this. Forgiveness is difficult. It's difficult. You know that, I know that. And but when you do, it's such a freeing experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting too, like in that forgiveness, I feel like sometimes we're set up in that sense of like, what does forgiveness really look like, right? What does that mean? And what does it mean when you say, I don't want to forgive somebody? So it's like, it's truly a prayerful place inside of your heart. You really have to be seeking to find that. And forgiveness, that freedom that you get from forgiving doesn't mean you forget what they
That's
did.
right. That's right.
You forgive in spite of it. It's not that you gave them a free pass, so to speak, to hurt you again, but you've given that space for yourself to now walk in wholeness where you can be able to hear from God and you could be one with God because you've given grace just like he gave us in that place.
Perfect answer. If there could be a perfect answer, that would be the answer. And so we're connecting the dots, right? So now we move to building wholeness and connection. And through your whole being broken and Grace Built Her communities, you teach women to heal and connect. How do you see sisterhood as a bridge, not only to healing, but also to leadership and lasting transformation?
So through the whole being broken and Grace Built Her community, I've seen over and over healing doesn't happen in isolation. And a lot of times if we're going through a painful, whether it be a separation, divorce, we find ourselves isolating ourselves, but the connection happens in sisterhood. And so when women come together to share their stories of grief and forgiveness, growth shifts in a special way that I can't even describe in words really, because that sisterhood bridge between healing and leadership, it teaches us how to hold space for one another and replace comparison and with compassion and with finding that way to build safety where truth can be spoken. And it allows women to heal, not just to feel heard, but to really heal so that they can rise into their next calling. So it's like it takes that crippling effect and transforms families, workplaces, generations. That's what I have really seen. And that's what leadership in the kingdom looks like when women walk with each other to a home for wholeness.
Yeah, and it kind of comes through in the book because even though none of you, I think, have read the entire thing, the dots just kept connecting. Each spirit, each woman connecting with the other. And you guys were very raw and honest about how you got there, how you rose to the occasion, even after the unforgiveness and all the other things that the co-authors talked about, including myself, because I'm one of them as well. So talk about the power of the Closer Bonds method. You developed this, which focuses on communication, listening, ownership, safety, empathy, and respect. How can women apply these principles to strengthen not only relationships with others, but also their relationship with themselves, who they are?
Yeah. So that's such a great question. When I created the Closer Bonds method, it was born out of my own journey I called it from protection to connection. So each letter that in relationships and in our inner world. And the C is like closer, being my last name is close. The C for communication. And that's like speaking truth even when it's shaky. So I had a great example of that today with a good friend of mine who, I've been speaking truth over her for years. And she was like, "Why does this matter so much to you?" And I said to her, "Look, this isn't an easy conversation because I know that it pushes some of her buttons, but what needs to be said needs to truly be said." And so, like, you speak in communication, even when it's a little scary. And the L's for listening, for hearing another woman's story without comparing or in competition, but really listening out of love. And ownership is taking responsibility for your own emotions instead of projecting them on someone else. Safety, creating spaces where you can bring your grief and being fragile without fear of what's to come from that. Empathy, walking without and not trying to fix things, but truly just walking in empathy and being open to hearing things with a compassionate side of you. And respect is honoring every woman's unique journey or every human's unique journey that God has created them for, and being able to be respectful in those things. Because when we apply these principles, we're not only healing our relationships, but we're restoring that relationship with ourselves. And that's when we move from surviving to thriving and from broken to bright or fractured to fabulous. Those are those moments for us when we really get to see what happens. So in the Closer Bonds method, really using these tools that I teach on, how they can be used in any relationship that we're in. And we start those with ourselves. So it's taking that deep look inside of yourself, creating a safe space for yourself to feel that you can communicate, and especially if it's, like I said, in those moments where you're speaking truth over someone else, being really prayerful about it, not just like going into it with I have something to say, but really, is this respectful? Am I being empathetic? Am I listening to what they're really saying when I'm communicating back? Am I speaking truth over them, or am I just speaking because I want to hear myself speak? And then owning whatever the outcome is of that conversation, because you're as responsible for what someone hears as to what you say. So if you spoke it into a time where they couldn't hear you, you have to still unpack that and make sure that they heard what you were actually saying, because you're as responsible for that. You're not just, it's not just speaking words, but making sure the other person truly heard the communication you were trying to get across.
Wow. Listening is such an important part of communication. And a lot of times we leave it out. Because we tend to have conversations where we're waiting for our turn to speak. So we're not even listening. We're not even hearing. We're just like waiting to jump in to get our part in, that we miss a lot of the communication that goes on. And so thank you for sharing that, because especially among women, there's something about us. We're pretty, it says fearfully and wonderfully made, and that scripture applies to everyone, but I think more than ever to us.
Yes.
Because we're just so unique. And I think it's because of the way we were made. we weren't made from dust. We were made from a rib. And that creates that part of us, that caring part, and also that not caring part,
Yeah.
us into this emotional species that God created. But when we find our spot, it's amazing. It's amazing when we find our spot, because when we find our spot, then we understand listening, and we understand communication better, and we understand even that our communication style is not always going to be somebody else's style. And
Exactly.
so, yeah, and that, I think, is what we need to cultivate as
That's why I
females.
really say, oh, excuse me.
Go ahead.
But no, that's why I really say you're as responsible for what the other person hears as to what you say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I have a bonus, because I want you to reflect. If you could leave every woman listening with one affirmation to remind her she's not broken beyond repair, what would it be?
So if I can leave every woman listening with just one affirmation, it's you're not broken beyond repair, but you're mending with gold. Because every crack in your story is a seam of strength. And and when held in sisterhood and touched by grace, once that something felt shattered, it becomes sacred, and you're whole, you're seen, and that your story matters. Because I think the most beautiful truth I've ever learned is that we don't have to hide in the cracks of our stories. They're not signs of failure, but they are really where the light gets in. And every scar and every tear and every Me Too movement in this sisterhood is a reminder that we're not walking alone. And when women come together, we don't just heal, but we become whole. And it's because of that very place that what once might have been thought as disqualified, it's where God gets to use us to connect. So I'll leave you with a little Beth bomb.
That's right. I wanted the Beth bomb, because she puts a lot of bombs in the book. So give us one. Give us a Beth
Right. Here's my Beth bomb. Fragility becomes strength when sisterhood holds the cracks together.
Wow. And sisterhood means just that, sisterhood, right?
Yeah.
God created us to be sisters in Him. And sometimes we get so carried away, even with the color of our skin, that we lose sight of who God called us to be, right? So
Amen.
I am so grateful for you, grateful for your story, grateful for all those who will read it and be healed and mended, and even reach out to Beth to get some help. That's what we're all in the book to do, right? To help somebody. And so tell them how they could reach out to you and what it is that you actually do.
Yeah. So I have authored several other books. I do have a journal. I've got my Whole Being Broken, Going from Broken to Bright book as well. I have a one-on-one coach. I do speaking engagements. I do church engagements. I do women's retreats. You can find me at all things social at wholebeingbroken.com, or on my website at beth@wholebeingbroken.com as well.
And so there you have it. What an amazing, deeply healing, because I'm all about that, healing conversation with Beth Close. Her message of sisterhood, wholeness, and rising from brokenness is exactly what so many kingdom women need to hear in this season. Beth, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your brilliance, because every single one of these women are so smart. I feel smart to be a part of their company. So smart. Education is a big deal to God. Sometimes we shove it to the side, but we're smart. He made us smart. He made us who we are. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you grab your copy of our anthology, From Cocoon to SOAR, compilation of unstoppable female leaders, to read Beth's full story, full chapter, Trailblazers Unite, Amplifying Sisterhood. So as far as the book is concerned, it's going to be launched, and we're going to have a launch party here in Florida. If you're in the Florida area and you can come, we do have tickets. We have 60 tickets on Eventbrite. Once we sell those 60 tickets, you can't actually come physically, but you can always purchase this book. And we're going to be all over the place with the book. Watch out for us. Watch out for us on social media. And remember, this podcast is all about equipping you to soar, to strengthen, overcome, align, and rise into your God-given purpose. That's the work I do through my SOAR leadership course, my weight program, Woman Aligned, Anointed, Independently Thriving, and the Birthing Room Mastermind that I do every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. To learn more about me, you could go to my website, drsharonarrindell.com, or Inspired Wholeness and inspiredwholenesscounseling.com. And you can follow me, as you can follow Beth as well on Facebook. On Facebook, I am Sharon Arrindell. She's Beth Close. Instagram and LinkedIn as well. On those, I'm at Dr. Sharon Arrindell. It was so great to have you here, Beth. Thank you for sharing from the depth of your heart.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's been such an honor to share this conversation with you in this book. And I'm so excited, like I said earlier, to see what God's going to do with this, because I just know that it's going to touch a lot of people's hearts.
Yes, ma'am. It's not just a book, everyone.
Right.
It's a movement. So thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us today on SOAR, Leadership for Kingdom Women. Remember, you are called to rise higher in business, in church, and in life. Stay strong, stay aligned, and keep soaring with boldness, wisdom, and faith. Until next time, keep rising